let's do our top 10s because I've got a pretty jarring Michigan movie in my
Do
top
you?
10. Yeah. So I guess I'll go first, but real quick, a
Mhm.
couple of honorable mentions. I want to mention Junkhead, which is a Japanese stop motion animated movie that is my gatekeeper for my top 20 of 2017. 2017, crazy good year for movies.
Mhm.
And because of that, Call Me By Your Name didn't make it. Probably be 21, but didn't quite make it. John Wick 2 is one of my honorable mentions. Love it. Good Time, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, The Florida Project, Three Billboards Outside of Ebbing, Missouri, the best Star Wars movie, The Last Jedi, Lady Bird, Get Out. Those are my honorable mentions. Love all those movies. Yeah, really strong. And then now when I tell you my top 10, you'll be like, are you okay? Because my number 10 is Detroit, the aforementioned Michigan movie. So I think this was a really strong year for female directors. Catherine Bigelow directed this one about the riots in Detroit. This is a horror movie that's dressed up as a drama, but basically a group of teenagers are taken hostage by Detroit police in an old abandoned mansion, and awful things happen during the riots. It was one of the most uncomfortable movie going experiences that I've had, and I saw that in the theater. My number 9 is First Reformed. This is Paul Schrader's best movie, in my opinion, where Ethan Hawke plays a very dejected priest whose son has been killed before the movie begins in combat, and whose wife and him divorced because of that. And he comes upon a suicidal person who's catastrophizing because of the climate crisis, and his pregnant wife.
That would be a 2018 for me, too, because it didn't come out in the States until then. So.
Got it. Well, I've got a few others that are going to fit that bill, too. Number 8, the most well-reviewed movie of all time, Paddington 2. Paul King's masterpiece, I think we can all say, about Paddington, going to jail and having a good time there.
With Brendan Gleeson, of all people.
Yeah, and then evil Hugh Grant.
So amazing. What a great movie.
Good. My number 7 is a Masaki Yuasa film that I imagine came out in 2018 in the States called Night is Short, Walk On Girl, which is a manga adaptation about a guy trying to find a girl who he fell in love with, at a university festival. I think Masaki Yuasa is the most underrated, and he's very highly rated, but I think he's the most underrated animator alive. And this is my second favorite movie of his.
What's your first?
Mind Game.
Oh, right. Yeah. I like both of these movies too, by the way.
Yeah, they're great. This movie is so joyful and fun and weird and experimental and funny. Highly recommend. Night is Short, Walk On Girl. My number 6 is Blade Runner 2049. Denis Villeneuve makes a movie. It's probably going to be on my list. So the sequel to Blade Runner, starring Ryan Gosling, the returning Harrison Ford, and sort of Sean Young. I think either de-aged or AI. Hard to know.
Yeah, something like that.
And then really good supporting performances from Jared Lego's, of all people. Ana de Armas is really good as a hologram. Sort of like
that was like her first thing, wasn't it?
The first thing I ever saw her in.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Sort of taking the idea of what is a person even farther. Dave Bautista in what I think is really his breakout role. And if you like that, you should watch the short prequel to this, or lead into this, called Blade Runner 2046 or something like that, or 2048.
Where can I watch that? I've never seen it.
Probably on YouTube.
Okay.
My number 5 is The Big Sick. This was a Michael Showalter movie. Michael Showalter had been known before this for really big comedies. This is it's very funny, but he took it down a bit. Kumail Nanjiani's breakout role. He and his wife wrote this together about their experience of his wife's illness. Great performance from him. Great performance by Elia Kazan's granddaughter, or great niece, or whatever. Holly Hunter and Ray Romano are incredible in this. Mm-hmm. Love it. Has the best 9/11 joke I've ever heard. My number 4 is You Were Never Really There, the aforementioned trauma movie about a hitman trying to save girls from pedophiles. By the way, my top 4, I have given 5 stars to all these movies, and that's pretty rare for me in a year. My number 3 is Coco, one of my favorite Pixar films, about a little boy who wants to play music, but his family is anti-music, and he ends up in the land of the dead. This is a great movie. When I think I talked about this when we did our Pixar episode, but I saw this in the theater. I wanted to cry so bad at so many points that it hurt my throat. And I saw my buddy who I was seeing it with just go like this at one point and started bawling because that was all the permission I needed. You mentioned that Hugh Jackman should have been nominated for Best Actor for Logan. I agree. It's my number 2 movie of the year. It's incredible. I'm not mad at Deadpool and Wolverine for what it did to this movie, but I do hope that it makes more people go back and watch this movie Maybe people who are like a little young for it in 2017, because it's just a great Western, great noir. And how can you be both of those things? I don't know, because James Mangold pulled it off and it was awesome.
He did.
My number one is Death of Stalin, the Armando Iannucci farce about what the title says. Probably Steve Buscemi's last great movie. I can't think of anything big he's done since then.
The only thing I can think of since then is King of Staten Island, which was super mid. So
totally agree. And it also has, okay, I have to tell a really quick anecdote. So the villain of this movie is played by Simon Russell Beale, and he plays Beria, the man who wanted to succeed Stalin. He was a very evil guy. I mean, all these guys were evil guys, but he was an especially evil guy. Simon Russell Beale was on Broadway. I forget what show he was in. Well, I saw him in the Lehman trilogy, which he's incredible in. In fact, that's probably the show that it was. And around that same time, a friend of my wife's was dating the piano player for that show, and he got COVID. And this woman, this piano player, got Simon Russell Beale to leave a voicemail for him that said, "Hello, Toby. I hear that you have COVID. How boring. We're all over here just waiting to get it too. I'm sure it'll be dreadful." And I have listened to this voicemail over and over and over again of Simon Russell Beale sending this voicemail to a friend of mine. It's great. Anyway, Death of Stalin is hilarious. And if you like Veep, you would love, because it's the same guy, you'd love it. That's my top 10.
And that was a 2018 also, so that won't appear on my list. There was a couple of those, like 90 Short Walk On Girl was a 2018, and some of those others. So some of those won't appear on my list, and there were maybe some years in your honorable mention that are in my honorable mentions too. I'll throw out a couple other movies that I liked and just mention a few others that were in my honorable mention for 2017. Big favorite in my house that we've watched over and over and over again and watched since my kid was little. Lego Batman came out that year. We love Lego Batman. We love Will Arnett as Batman. We quote it pretty regularly around here. Just a ton of fun. Another ton of fun that came out that year was Thor Ragnarok. Still, I mean, easily the best Thor by a wide margin. And I still think one of my favorite MCU movies. Another movie that came out that year was Kogonada's Columbus, which we talked about a little bit when we talked about After Yang. Great performance from John Cho. Is a really, really quiet movie that I thought was just beautiful. And also another movie that year that came out with The Post, I thought was really good. Tom Hanks, Meryl Streep, Steven Spielberg.
I don't like that one. I think it's super boring.
I remember I only saw it the one time when it came out, but I rated it pretty highly.
I was ready to be like, oh, I like all these movies too.
Yeah. And also outside of my top 10, amazingly, is as highly as I've spoken about it, Logan is outside of my top 10. I actually have it at number 14. I also haven't seen a lot of these movies in a long time, but obviously I think very highly of it. And it's certainly one of the best films of 2017. Coco is also outside of my top 10. So there you have it. Still great movie.
I don't know what to do with this.
Yeah. And I'm going to get into my top 10. A lot of movies in my top 10 are movies that you named like as honorable mentions. So, and a couple of these I'm not sure maybe you haven't seen or maybe that you don't like. So I'll be curious to see your reaction to some of these. My number 10 is a movie that you did mention with Willem Dafoe, The Florida Project, Sean Baker film about a apartment building where Willem Dafoe plays, what is he, like the building manager or something, where he's just trying to help everybody out as much as he can. It's kind of a place where people who don't have anywhere else to go and are really struggling with life, stay, and he does his best to try to help them out. It's really a beautiful movie. My number 9 is one that we talked about at great length, is Call Me By Your Name. My number 8 is Paul Thomas Anderson, Phantom Thread. It's the last movie that Daniel Day-Lewis was in. I love this movie. I think the fashion in it is great. I love the performances from Daniel Day-Lewis and Leslie Manville as his, I think it's his sister. Where do you land on Phantom Thread?
I like Phantom Thread. I like that you said you like the fashion in it, whereas you would normally say I like the costumes in it, but the movie's about fashion, so you're predisposed to say fashion. I think it's cool. It's probably in my bottom half of PTA movies, but there's only one PTA movie that I think is, like, for me, tough to watch. I just really dislike it, Inherent Vice. But I do like Phantom Thread. What's her name?
Well, Leslie Manville is his sister, and the other one is Vicky Krebs.
Vicky Krebs. Yeah, I saw the Corsage, the movie that she starred in, and I hated it, and so now I hate her a little bit. But she's very good in A Phantom Thread.
Yes, she is. Yeah, she's a great foil for. I mean, it doesn't. I mean, Daniel Day-Lewis is kind of a giant figure in
Mhm.
just about any movie he's in. So it's no small feat to keep up with him in any of his movies. She's really really great in it. Also, the score in that movie is phenomenal. My number 7 and 6 are both movies that you had on your list. My number 7 is The Big Sick. Like you said, it's hilarious. It's touching. Ray Romano of all people is hilarious in this movie. I mean, the star of one of the most milquetoast sitcoms of all time is just kills it in this movie. He's just so good in it. And Holly Hunter, of course, is amazing in everything she's in. And I love Kamal Nanjiani. Zoe Kazan's great in it. My number 6, Blade Runner 2049. I feel similarly about Villeneuve. Love his stuff. Love Ryan Gosling, Harrison Ford. Love the whole bit. All great. Number 5, another movie I'm surprised I didn't hear you mention anywhere in honorable mentions or anything, is Dunkirk. Where do you fall on Dunkirk?
Yeah, so we did our Nolan rankings. It's probably third from the bottom for me. I think The Dark Knight Rises is not as good as Dunkirk. I think The Following is not as good as Dunkirk. And I think Tenet is not as good as Dunkirk. So it's probably fourth from the bottom. I only saw it once in the theater. I would like to see it again, maybe when Nolan's next movie comes out.
Dunkirk definitely did a lot better for me when I got to watch it at home and could, had the subtitles on. The 3 different time frames is really jarring at first, but they pull it off really, really well because there's 3 different stories that are taking place within 3 different time frames. It's really different and takes a little bit of getting used to.
So I'll say like I said, I've only seen it the one time, and I thought it was dumber after I heard that there were 3 different time frames, because as I'm watching it, I'm like, well, this could all be happening at the same time, and I actually don't think it affects the movie at all, that one is a week, one is a day, and one is an hour. But that was just that first viewing of it in the theater. Like, maybe I'd watch it again and be like, holy crap. Because, the second time I watched The Prestige, I was like, there's so much more going on here than I thought there was.
Prestige is so good. Agreed. Okay. So then number 4 brings us to Lady Bird, Greta Gerwig's movie. Yeah, just a delight. I think Laurie Metcalf is amazing in this. Saoirse Ronan is great in it. Just everybody's great. And it's just a funny movie. It's touching. Really, really good. The number 3, the Best Picture winner of that year. I feel like you said you didn't like this movie, or maybe I heard you wrong. You said you do not like The Shape of Water. What's your beef with Shape of Water?
It's bad. It's a bad movie. No, I actually do think it's bad. I think Michael Shannon's the only good thing about this movie. His character is so vile and nasty. I really locked into that character. He's not in it enough. I think the main story, I don't know how you get into that story, because the creature, I just didn't feel any empathy for that creature whatsoever. I didn't think that the whole relationship between the two of them was not salacious enough to be shocking. So I didn't get anything out of it. And I found most of the characters irritating. I saw it in a beautiful old style theater, and even that did nothing for me, even though that is in the movie while I'm watching the movie. And when I realized that wasn't doing anything for me, I was like, I'm out. I'm washing my hands of this thing.
Yeah. No. So I've been in the bag kind of for Sally Hawkins. I know you're not a big fan either, but I saw.
Although I said nice things about Paddington, so.
That's true. Yeah. Well, I saw this movie called Happy Go Lucky when it first came out in 2008, and I absolutely fell in love with her then. And I've, like I said, kind of been in the bag for her ever since then. And I really love this movie, and I love Richard Jenkins in it, and I love Michael Stuhlbarg in it, and I love Michael Shannon and everything. And like you said, he's not in it enough. I mean, pick a movie that Michael Shannon's in, and you could apply that statement to it. I mean, he's the best.
I dare you to watch that Werner Herzog Michael Shannon movie that I watched because I thought Batista was in it, but he's not. That was trash.
Well, that was your fault. And then number 2 and 1 are movies that have come up already in discussion. Number 2 is Jordan Peele's Get Out. We watched this again recently. I just think this movie is awesome. It's so funny. It's so clever, so creative. I think Daniel Kaluuya is just so great in it. I love Catherine Keener. She's another one who, the first time I saw her, Being John Malkovich was the first movie I've seen her in. I've just been completely infatuated with her ever since then, in a just in an acting sort of way. I just love her in every movie that she's in.
I love her in a romantic sort of way.
Yeah. She's great. And I really think this is a really, really cool movie and an amazing debut for a writer director to have come up with something that's so unique and so that just made such a huge impact the way it did. And Jordan Peele has gone on to do good things. I mean, Us and Nope, I think are both really good movies. I think Get Out is still the best of his 3, but I think Us and Nope are both very strong too.
I don't like Us that much. I think Get Out is incredible, and I think Nope is even better.
You like Nope more than Get Out? Mm-hmm. Interesting. We're due to watch Nope again. My wife and we haven't watched it since we saw it in the theater, so we've been talking about doing that again.
Well, I'd love to talk to you about it on the podcast, because I remember when we saw it, we had a very spirited text message debate about it.
Did we?
Yes, you didn't like the monkey stuff, and I went on this long diatribe about why it's good.
I believe you. I do not remember this.
I will find it for the day we talk about it.
You can, but like I said, I do believe you. You don't need to prove it to me.
I think our audience would find it interesting.
They probably would. And then my number one is a film I had to defend against accusations that it didn't deserve 2 Oscar nominations and supporting actor, is Three Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri.
Okay, fine. Yes, it didn't deserve to, just because you spread the wealth a little bit. I love the movie. Mm-hmm. I think McDonough has done no bad movies. I'm a big Seven Psychopaths defender, but get Stuhlbarg in there. That's all I'm saying.
Stuhlbarg should have been, I would have put Stuhlbarg in there above like just about anybody else in that category. Totally fine. But I think this is a really, really good movie. Yeah, I love McDonough. I love the way he writes dialogue. I love how his characters can be unsympathetic in ways, but are still interesting. And you still kind of want to see them maybe not succeed. Maybe that's not the right word, but you know.
I mean, I certainly wanted Frances McDormand to succeed.
I did too, but she does a lot of questionable, morally questionable things along the way.
Gotta do what you gotta do. I watched You Were Never Really Here today. So
yeah, right. And well, that's kind of his wheelhouse. McDonough, he's got a lot of morally questionable characters in his movies, and I think this one really does a great job of showing. I mean, McDormand, again, of course, one of our finest actors. Just in everything that she's in is so great. Woody Harrelson is great in this. Sam Rockwell is great in this. Caleb Landry Jones is a very small part in this, and he's excellent in it too. I really think this is a great movie. I love Martin McDonough.
People are trying to say this movie's bad now.
There was backlash against it when it happened. Also,
we got into a big fight on Facebook with someone about it. I forgot.
Sure did. Yeah, someone who hadn't even seen it as it happens. Yeah,
I've since reconciled with this person. So,
oh, you have? Okay,
yeah. So we're not going to name names.
I have not. So, totally fine. But what's people's beef now? What are they like?
I think it's the same.
Why are we relitigating this movie?
I think maybe people are trying to say it's like a Green Book kind of thing, but I couldn't disagree more.
How in what universe is this a Green Book movie? I mean, the ending, there's no indication. I remember a lot of the complaints at the time was that they're saying the ending excuses everything she does. Like, not at all. I don't see the ending as excusing any of the characters' actions in any way.
I think they were more mad that it excused what Sam Rockwell did.
See, and I don't even think that it does.
I totally agree.
Yeah, I think those people are insane.
Just because they were successful doesn't mean they were right.
Right, just because it happened, it doesn't mean that the movie's making some moral statement on it. Just because sometimes complicated things happen, and things that are morally questionable. That's kind of what happens in life sometimes, and that's going to be reflected in the movies, especially in a McDonough movie. I mean, look at In Bruges. There's a lot of questionable things in that. But you really feel for those the characters in that movie too, who are assassins, who are hitmen.
The person who's most honorable is the worst person in the movie.
By far, yeah. And it's...
McDonough's a genius. People should shut up.
McDonough's a genius. People who are hating on the movie, especially on Three Billboards, are insane. They're wrong, and I don't know, they're giving me a headache.